The Andy Pollin Show.
We got to go after this with everything we got, figuring they're going to come with everything they got.
I'll start off by saying I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630 starts right now.
51 years ago, as manager of the New York Mets, Yogi Berra famously said, "It ain't over till it's over," as his 83-win team went on to the World Series and took the mighty Oakland A's to 7 games before finally going out. Yogi's Mets last night, yep, it wasn't over until it was over, and Pete Alonso delivered one for the ages. We'll get to that. And how about Kirk Cousins? You like that, right? I mean, look, whatever you want to say about Kirk, he's been Captain Clutch lately and was Captain Clutch last night as the Atlanta Falcons once again pulled one out. And for a team that was looking like they were going down the tubes with Kirk early in the season, watch out. They're in first place, and they look like a very interesting team. Of course, the Commanders are playing this weekend. They got a game against Cleveland, and all kinds of excitement about Jaden Daniels, who won yet another award yesterday. Just might as well just put him up on the board there as he gets him week after week. 3 of the 4 games he's played this year, he's been Rookie of the Week in the NFL. And he was again last week, and we'll see what happens against Cleveland on Sunday. A Cleveland team where Deshaun Watson, with the guaranteed contract, is looking like not so good right now. And if the Commanders' defense can play like they did, particularly in the second half last week at Arizona, it could get really interesting around here. We do Ravens preview every Friday. We'll get to that at 10:30. Ravens have a big game this week against Cincinnati, a divisional game, a game that Joe Burrow says they have to play damn near perfect to win. We'll talk about that coming up at 10:30. And Al Michaels on yesterday on the Pat McAfee show, defending his energy. And you wouldn't think that someone who's been doing games as long as Al has done would have to defend himself, but he did on the show, and you judge for yourself whether he delivered last night with the overtime walk-off in Atlanta. But let's begin with the Mets, who won that game yesterday against the Milwaukee Brewers in a decisive game where it looked like, okay, Milwaukee was finally going to do something that no other team had done since they went to this new wild card format in 2022. That's the best of 3, where they play all 3 at home, or they don't play a road game for either team in that. Well, I guess, yeah, it's a 3-game series. What I'm trying to say is the 3-game series with the higher seed at home, and they don't go on the road. Anyway, the team that has won the opening game of the series has always gone on to win it, as we saw with the Orioles, where Kansas City won the first game and won the second game. And so we are now 12 for 12. But, boy, it didn't look that way. The Mets had fallen behind 2-0 in this game. They get to the 8th inning, and it looks like a great run that they had to get to the playoffs was going to come to an end. And in Milwaukee with the home field, you know, they'd get to celebrate there, and all would be wonderful, and the Mets would have to put their tail between their legs and go back to New York. But that's not what happened. Jake Bauers and Sal Frelick broke open a scoreless tie in the 7th inning, back-to-back home runs. So, again, it's 2-0 going into the 8th. And here is Pete Alonso up at the plate. 9th inning, gets to the 9th inning with the Mets down 2-0, and Pete Alonso is at the plate with 1 out, and he, you know, it had a disappointing end to the regular season. Hadn't had a home run since the 19th of September, and was hitting less than 200 in this series. And he gets up with 2 men on base after Francisco Lindor had opened the 9th by walking on a 3-2 pitch. Mark Vientos struck out. Brandon Nimmo singled. So you got Nimmo on, you got Lindor on, and then you got Pete Alonso at the plate. Now, he does have 226 career home runs and is a big bopper, but has not been clutch lately and hadn't been clutch in this series, hitting under 200. And here's where man meets moment. I've known Howie Rose since 1987. I worked with him for 5 years at WFAN. I not only admired his talent, I liked him very much. He is admired and liked by just about everybody. I've never heard anybody say a bad word about Howie Rose. And Howie has seen, I would say, 95% of Mets games ever played. He's a few years older than me, so he's if he's not 70, he's pushing 70. And when the Mets came in 1962, he was at the age where his father could start taking him to the Polo Grounds. And Howie grew up in Queens, so when the Mets moved to Flushing in 1964, he was old enough, and this is how kids are raised in the city in New York, he was old enough to jump on the subway and go out and see games. And he saw a lot of games. And in New York, it's a little different than it was here in that most of the Mets games, as far as I know, even going back to the 60s, were televised. Here in Washington, when we had the Senators, we got maybe 20 games a year on Channel 9, and that was it. But in New York, the Yankees had most of their games televised. The Mets had most of their games televised. So Howie, I would say, given his passion for the team, has seen most of the games played in franchise history. And he did not get to call their World Series championship in 1986. He was doing pre- and post-game work. But by the early 90s, he started to get mixed into the broadcasts. And at some point, probably close to 30 years ago, he became the voice of the team and has done an outstanding job, an excellent job. And again, when you talk about man-meeting moment, someone who knows and has seen, has witnessed most of the history of the team, almost all of it, and he gets to this point to make a call which will be remembered for all time. Yes, it's a first-round series. It's a wild card series. It's not the World Series. It's not the ball gets by Buckner and Mookie Wilson scores. It's not that, or the Mookie Wilson ball goes by Buckner and maybe it was Ray Knight scored. It's not that, but it's a big moment. And there was a man last night in Milwaukee who was ready for the moment, and his name is Howie Rose.
Williams sets. Here's the pitch. Swinging a fly ball to right field. Pretty well hit. Frelick back at the wall. He jumps. It's gone. He did it. He did it. Pete Alonso with the most memorable home run of his career. Pumps his fist as he rounds second. It's a 3-run homer. He's given the Mets a 3-2 lead. They all pour out of the dugout. Alonso on his way to home plate. They're waiting for him. He hits the plate. He is first congratulated by Nimmo, hugged by Lindor. There are a dozen Mets waiting for him outside the dugout. Pete Alonso keeps this fairy tale season going with the fairy tale swing of his career. 3-2 New York.
You can't do it any better than that. You just can't do it. Cannot do it. Mets win the game 4-2 as they move on to Philadelphia this weekend. And congratulations to the Mets, and congratulations for Howie for meeting the moment, which you can't be surprised by given his background. That was an incredible call. Pete Alonso, and this is all sports, that you just put whatever happened in the past behind you and you prepare yourself for what's next. And that's exactly what Alonso did as he was ready to deliver in that situation.
It's that next pitch mentality. You can't change what's happened in the past, and every pitch, every inning, I want to do the best I can. I'm focused on that. And, it's baseball. It's a game of failure. Sometimes that's not the case, but especially in these big games, you got to move on to the next pitch and make a positive impact or do the best you can. Stay within yourself and execute. So I'm just really happy I was able to execute right there and just hit something hard and a pitch I can handle a big part of the field. So, yeah, it's just that next pitch mentality, and anything that happened in the past, it doesn't matter. It's the moment now.
Yeah, and Pete Alonso will be celebrated forever, and if they go on to win the World Series, maybe he'll be thought of in the same way that Juan Soto was thought about here as the Nationals made their run in 2019. So Mets are on to the next round, and we're through with the wild card. We move on to the divisional series this weekend. Meantime, and I guess if you're a late-night person, which I am not, I did see the drama of that, but wasn't up for the late-night drama that happened in Atlanta as Kirk Cousins, whatever you want to say about him, and there are those here who say, good riddance, glad they didn't give him a long-term contract, whatever you want to say, because his playoff record isn't good, but he has this knack. And you remember the "you like that" phrase, which came about from the game that it really changed the trajectory of his career. They were down 24-0 against Tampa, and he pulled off the greatest comeback in the history of the Washington franchise. And then as he was walking to the locker room, he saw Tarek El-Bashir, who at that time was working for NBC Sports Washington and covering the team. And Tarek said something to him, and Kirk looked at him and said, "You like that?" And that became his kind of a trademark phrase there. And you have to like what he did last night in bringing the Bucs back to win. The Falcons, I should say, in bringing them back to beat the Bucs in overtime, 36-30, 509 yards, 4 touchdowns, the last of which was a 45-yard scoring pass to Correll Dodge in overtime. And they were down, with the usual Kirk situation, down minute 14 to go, no timeouts, and he takes them up the field for a field goal to tie the game at 30, and then delivers the game winner. Just you look at I don't care if it's overtime or not. You throw for 500 yards in a game, that's pretty incredible. And he found some players who had been, somewhat forgotten or had difficult times, like Drake London last night. He missed some of the time as they were checking him out for a concussion. He had 12 catches for 154 yards. And Kyle Pitts, who was off to a slow start, he had 7 catches for 88 yards last night. When you roll up those kind of numbers, you got to have receiving numbers on the other end, and Pitts delivered on that and talked after the walk-off win with Jeremy Fowler of ESPN.
Kyle, what did we just witness?
A barn burner that ended in execution.
What did you see on that play?
I knew Red has man-on-man matchup. He got it, he won it, he took the yak and he scored.
Yeah, what did that feel like to be able to celebrate that down there?
I mean, it's amazing. Obviously, overtimes, you got to kick it into gear and, pay attention to your details. So it was important for us to do that, and we did.
How is tonight an example of what this offense can look like?
Just persistence and just being able to just keep our head down and just keep grinding. Each play, each drive, each quarter, and not finish it out till it goes to 0.
What was the key to getting you involved tonight a little more?
Just the offense just going, letting the ball find its way.
And what did Kirk Cousins show tonight?
Yeah, he's one of those guys.
Well, is he one of those guys? He was for Atlanta last night. He's not a Hall of Fame guy. Is he at the level of the elite of the elite? Maybe not. But last night, 42 of 58. 42 of 58. He did throw an interception, okay, but he threw for 509 yards and the 4 touchdowns, including the walk-off winner to Hodge in overtime. After the game, on the field, talking about his great performance.
You scored on the opening drive tonight. It was your first offensive touchdown in 17 drives. What was different for this offense going into this game?
Well, I mean, we moved the football tonight, but we still didn't finish as many drives as we should have. But I felt like every week we've been improving, and we took another step tonight. You guys found a lot of success in explosive plays tonight. You connected with 5 receivers for at least 1 reception of 20 yards or more. What felt right with this offensive crew? Yeah, I think we're just getting more on the same page. That starts with me and Zach calling the game, and then from there with my teammates and starting to anticipate better. This game's all about anticipation, and took another step tonight. There's a lot more to go. I'm not sure if you know this, but everyone in the NFL calls this Kirktober. You had 504 yards tonight for 4 touchdowns. I mean, what was going right for you tonight? Is it something about October for you? No, Zach kept putting the ball in my hand, kept giving me opportunities, and people kept getting open. I was protected. And my job was just be the distributor and give it to the open man, and got a lot of ops tonight. You guys are sitting atop of the NFC South. You're number 1 overall right now. How does it feel to go into a long weekend at the top? Yeah, I'm going to enjoy this weekend. I'm going to go take an Epsom salt bath. I'm exhausted. But we're going to enjoy the weekend, family time, and then get back to work. A lot of football up ahead.
Kirktober with Kylie Hartung of Prime as that game was on last night. And we've had a lot of stinkers on Thursday night. That was not one of them. He gets 66 points and a walk-off touchdown win. That's incredible. Falcons at 3-2 in a division right now, which includes maybe the worst team in the league, though they do have a win, Carolina at 1-3. And also, Tampa, how good are they with what we saw last night? A chance to close it out. They couldn't get it done. And New Orleans, there is some talk that they're going to make a deal for Adams. We'll see. but they're 2-2 on the year. So that's a winnable division for Kirk Cousins and the Falcons. And last night he played winning football. And, as we get further and further away from the Kirk years, remember the last time he started at quarterback here was 2017. That's a long, long time ago, especially when you think of all that's happened in between, the broken leg for Alex Smith, the parade of different quarterbacks who played in his place, the false hopes of the different quarterbacks like Sam Howell. And now, all these years later, Kirk is still like the ever-ready bunny, still moving, still bopping along, and performing like he did last night to give the Falcons a win. The call on Prime last night from Al Michaels, I thought it lived up to the moment. You'll judge for yourself. But Al's taking some heat as he's closing in on 80 that he just doesn't have the energy to do it anymore. What he says about that to Pat McAfee, we'll get to that and the call as we continue. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
So you remember when Kirk Cousins played here, what a primetime disaster, the Commanders were at that time, and they were. I mean, it just was uncanny the way they would play primetime games and fail. There were some moments. They beat Aaron Rodgers and the Packers in a Sunday night game where Dan Snyder was seen dancing in his box like he had a snake in his pants. But by and large, they were failures in that moment. And Kirk, had his times of choking. Let's face it. I mean, they had a chance to make the playoffs in 2016, the 2016 season. And they were playing the Giants in the last game of the year here at FedEx Field. And the Giants had nothing to play for. They had clinched everything. They were resting all their veterans. And Kirk Cousins threw a soul-crushing interception to end that game, and they missed the playoffs. All they had to do was win that game. They would have been in. And that, goes with his legacy as well. But things have changed since he left town. And his performance last night was his 15th game-winning drive since 2021. That's 4 more than anybody else in football over the same period of time. So, whatever you want to say, and the history is the history, but the current is the current, and right now he's Captain Clutch. Kirk is Captain Clutch for the Atlanta Falcons. Al Michaels doing the game on Prime last night. Al's close to 80. He's either 78 or 79 years old. And the last few years, he's starting to get some criticism. There was that incredible comeback game in the Jacksonville playoff game a couple of years ago where he was doing with Tony Dungy. That was, I guess, his last game ever for NBC. And it was an incredible game. And he got criticized for lack of energy in that. Now, part of the problem may have been Tony Dungy, because Dungy may be pretty good in the studio, and I think he is. But that could have been even the first game he ever did. I don't even know. But Tony Dungy is not a high-energy guy. And maybe Al fed off that, and it just didn't go well. So he's gotten sort of this reputation of a guy who, needs to go. Like, it's time. And he recently said, well, I got to know Vin Scully late in his life, and Vin said, you need to keep doing it as long as you enjoy it. Scully worked till he was 88 and was still good, still had his fastball, but it's a different pace game. It's different than football. And Al has gotten his share of criticism for lack of energy. So yesterday, this is before last night, so it's yesterday afternoon, Pat McAfee's show. Al Michaels comes on to, I guess, in part promote the game, but also to talk about how people are viewing him. And when he was asked about the criticism about his energy, this is what he said.
I don't scream the game at you. I don't holler the game at you.
Never have. Though, right?
No, never have. And, when people go back and they say, Pat Summerall was one of the greatest of all time, and he was. Remember how Pat did the game? 2nd and 5, gain of 3, right? He didn't blow you out. You have to save it for the moments. And I think when you look at like Joe Buck, you look at Jim Nance and myself, and we did 17 of the last 18 Super Bowls. We don't scream the game at you. We don't holler the game at you. But there's a whole bunch of people around the country. Look, it's a very diverse country of 330 million people. And there are some who want you to, whoa, it's 4-2 in the basketball game. Whoa! If it's 4-2, where do you go at 102 to 101? Where do you go?
Yeah.
You got to leave some room.
Yeah.
So, I mean, CD Lamb scores this time. So what am I supposed to do? Scream my guts out? Anyway,
Al,
that's
it's my fault.
I want
to let you know, I'm one of the people why it's my fault, though. I'm very, at everything, So I am a part to blame with that entire thing. But also, I think there's a lot of people that maybe, I don't want to say newer to sports, but probably a little bit newer to sports. They don't know that is what makes Al Michaels. Al Michaels telling a story in there, and not every moment is the climax of the story. There is others that are on their way, which is why you'd make it into any Hall of Fame that you wanted to. And I think it's a beautiful thing, legitimately.
Well, you got to leave some room, like I say. I mean, the game's going to start. It's a 60-minute game. If you scream your guts out in the first 3 minutes, where are you going for the next 57?
All right, so judge for yourself. That's Al yesterday afternoon on the Pat McAfee show. Did he meet the moment last night? Overtime, Falcons, Bucks, and here is how Al Michaels called the game winner.
Mooney moving. That's fired. That's caught. And that is Hodge. And Hodge is going to take it to the end zone. A most improbable win for the Atlanta Falcons.
I don't really have an issue with that. And you also have to remember that's television. So he's letting the pictures tell the story. And you get the walk-off win, the big celebration, players running on the field, jumping all over Hodge. There's something to that. I would quibble with him a little bit on what he says about Pat Summerall. Yes, Pat Summerall delivered in that way, not quite as monotone as he made it, but Summerall had two things working for him. Number one, he had an incredible voice, a better voice than Al Michaels. Al's voice is fine, but the gravity of his voice was important. The other thing was he had a very high-energy partner in John Madden. And Madden had made his name nationally, first as a coach and an excitable coach on the sideline for the Raiders. And then remember the light beer commercials where he used to bust through the poster? Hey, this. So he had that. And so you needed some ice to the fire of Madden. Al Michaels, yeah, he's working with Kirk Herbstreit. Herbstreit's okay, but he's not that. That's not who he is. Kirk is more of an analytical guy. He knows the players. He studies college football. So while Al can say, yeah, I mean, look at Summerall and look at me, and they're both comparable in their careers for sure. I mean, you could even argue that Al's had the better career and the signature call of all time. Do you believe in miracles? Yes. But now at age 80, he's starting to, or close to 80, he's starting to get some criticism for that. And I think he's a little bit too defensive about that. And I think you can make a case that I just gave you the game-winning call that over the course of a 3-hour-plus game that he's probably not bringing it the way he used to. And maybe he would even admit that. But he has been quite defensive about the criticism and doesn't like it when people say that about him. I mean, some guys would just say, "Hey, so what? That's your opinion. Everybody's entitled to one. This is the way I've done it for all these years. This is the way I'm going to continue to do it." All right, some more yak out of Ashburn yesterday, and if you look at the Commanders' success this year, all the excitement, of course, is about what Jaden Daniels has been able to do, and this is among the most incredible 4-game starts. Well, it is the most incredible 4-game start for a quarterback in NFL history because no quarterback in the history of the game has had a 4-game stretch where he's completed 82% of his passes and thrown only one interception. This is probably historical stuff, and we're probably as a fan base a little bit slow to embrace it because we've been burned before. We have been burned before. And we're, in some ways, waiting for the other shoe to drop. But Dan Snyder's not walking through that door anymore. Is not. And yesterday, as a matter of fact, there was a collection of the best sports stories of the last 2 years released. And one of them was the great investigative report that was done by Don Van Natta and Seth Wickersham about which really led. This was October of 2022. right? October of 2022, so it's 2 years ago. And the story of Snyder walking around his box and saying to people, they can't F with me, and he said, that he was gonna take them down, and he had dirt on the commissioner and this, that, and the other. And that big story probably pushed it further than anything else. There was, of course, Snyder punching himself in the face when he leaked the emails between Bruce Allen and John Gruden, which led to a congressional investigation, which ultimately resulted in him being fined $60 million for running a toxic workplace. So, we don't have that anymore. It's a new day here. And I actually sent Don something on Twitter, and I said you need to come to town and see the fruits of your labor. He said he's actually coming in. I said they ought to throw you a parade because we're feeling good. Now, the nit to pick with this team, even at 3-1, is the defense. And the defense has not been good aside from the second half or maybe the last three quarters of the game at Arizona on Sunday. And the secondary still appears to be a mess. They were trying to throw Kyler Murray from the pocket, which is ridiculous. He hardly ran at all. And, to hold them to 14 points, especially when Arizona was working off a short field to start the game because of the way the opening kickoff went. They're starting at their own 45, so it was a 55-yard touchdown drive, which was impressive. They took it right down the field and threw a TD to Marvin Harrison. And then to see them score only one more touchdown in what was a 42-14 blowout, you really can't argue with it much other than the stats where they got run over. They gave up a lot of rushing yards, and that's going to be a concern moving forward. But secondary, which had been the Keystone Cops for the first few weeks, was much, much better on Sunday. And as Whitt pointed out, a lot of it had to do with him simply simplifying the defense. They were trying to do too many complicated things, and he said, the hell with it, let's just cut everything down and see what happens, and it worked out well. And that improved because of players now being able to play fast without thinking, and also now being able to communicate better in the secondary.
The communication was outstanding. I mean, we had we cut the missed assignments down a ton. One thing we did coaching-wise is we streamlined the call. So we narrowed the call sheet down some. Maybe I was trying to do too much. And so I was like, okay, let's just make sure these guys can set their feet and go play fast. And let's not be cute with anything. Let's just play fast. And that's what we did. And the communication was outstanding with the guys. And then they went and played. They hit, they ran. It was the way it's supposed to look.
The old KISS, keep it simple, stupid. I think back to Richie Pettibone, the way he ran his defense. Richie was great at making adjustments, and guys who played for him, and that was another era in the NFL where you guys stuck around for years and years. This is basically a brand new team. They turned over more than half the roster. The coaching staff is new, and there's a lot that has to be picked up. But they said Richie could draw up some things on the blackboard at the half and make complete adjustments, especially like the Super Bowl win over Miami, the first one that they won, where the Dolphins did not complete a pass in the second half. I know it wasn't a good quarterback duo with Woodstock. They called it Woodstock. It was Don Strock and David Woodley, and that wasn't a very formidable duo. Pre-Marino, that was the year before they drafted Marino, but he could make those adjustments, and I think Whitt is getting the understanding, because he coached in Dallas before, where the defense stayed intact pretty much, and they drafted a lot of these guys, and you had Micah Parsons and so forth. He was a secondary coach there as well, and I think he's recognizing that there's such newness here. You got to keep it as simple as you can, and you can't have guys that are thinking. They just got to go out and react, and he was happy that they were able to do that. But as he points out, the rushing yardage they gave up was a problem, and there's a long way to go for a team that is 3-1, but clearly struggling some defensively.
This is the NFL. That's where stars are born. When somebody else gets hurt, you come in and you play well. I've had multiple guys that have done that. So we better be focused on playing our best ball, trending. We played good last week. Can we play better? And then can we keep building until we get to some excellent play? Because we're not there yet. I mean, you give up 182 yards rushing. You can say you play good. The best thing is we held them 14 points. Really should have been 7. So I'm not looking at their line and saying, okay, we're about to go have 10 sacks. We better just go focus and understand what we have to do and execute at a high level, then good things will come.
Also, Cleveland's supposed to get Nick Chubb back this week, and that could be a problem, again, for a team that gave up, as he said, 182 yards rushing. Home game. And, it makes sense to say what you're going to hear him say here, but there is a lot to be said, and this is going to be an interesting part of the crowd on Sunday. They've been selling out the games last year plus with new ownership, but it's still a big, big, big number for the visiting team. And Cleveland fans, they travel. The dog pound, they love their football team. And it's quite possible that a lot of tickets were bought up last year and even the year before for this game because – well, certainly from last year when you knew the schedule was coming out. So it's going to be interesting to see, how much of a home field factor this is going to be. And especially, on defense, where if it's really good, the opposing team has to go to a silent snap count. Things have been so bad here over the years that the home team has had to go to a silent snap count, especially when you're playing a team like Pittsburgh or Philadelphia, where their fans can easily travel and fill up the stadium. And this is nothing new. I mean, this goes back, I remember with Jim Zorn here in 2008. So we've had that here. This could be, off of the opening success here, that it could be a raucous home crowd. And Whitt says that could actually make a bit of a difference for his defense.
Q always talks about, energy generating ball, and the fans that were in Arizona, I don't know if you were there or not, but it felt like a home game at some points. I mean, they were loud, and we knew if we had the opportunity of winning these 2 road games, when we come back home, the fans are going to be excited to watch us play. And defensively, we need that energy, the crowd, to get it going, because defensive players, they build off of it. And so I'm excited to get in the stadium. I'm excited to play well and get the turnovers, get the negative plays, keep the score down, and then give the ball to Five and let Five do what he does well.
Get Five do his thing. The number 4 for Cleveland, you want to put him on his butt too, and hope that his struggles continue. But we'll see. I mean, it seems like they've had quite a few games against Cleveland. I remember going RG3's first year in Cleveland, which would have been 2016, I believe, and maybe 2015. And he, I was thinking that it was great. We're going to get to see a matchup with RG3 against Kirk Cousins, and what happens? RG3 got hurt in the first game, but anyway, we'll see what happens with the Cleveland Browns in town on Sunday. Much more from Ashburn yesterday. What Kliff Kingsbury says about his prized pupil. Also, we do Ravens preview as the Ravens get ready to play at Cincinnati. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630. I know we as a fan base feel like we have been wandering in the desert for 40 years looking for that quarterback. It's maybe 30. But, yeah, it's been a long haul. And it looks like they found that guy. It looks that way. And the whole league is abuzz about Jaden Daniels. And you know what's going to happen if they win on Sunday against the Cleveland Browns? The buzz gets bigger. And if they go to Baltimore the week after that and they knock off the Ravens, who have found their stride after starting off 0-2, it gets bigger and bigger. And then all this talk you've been hearing this week about, Super Bowl, got to go get Devontae Adams. Well, maybe that becomes a possibility. I say a possibility. This is not a Super Bowl defense. We know that. But you got one of those guys. And while there has never been a rookie quarterback to start a Super Bowl, it's not out of the question, though it is a very, very long shot to even think about that now. But the fact that we roll into October actually thinking about that, actually hearing people say the words Super Bowl, it's really stunning. And the stat that you have probably heard this week more than any other stat any other time, maybe even more than Ted Williams' 406, at least it seems that way, is the 82% completion percentage that Jaden Daniels has. And you've heard analyst after analyst just shake their head, marveling at it. Yesterday was Booger McFarland's turn as he showed up once again on PTI, asked about this completion percentage and how he thinks it's possible.
Well, I think it has a little bit to do with familiarity. Kliff Kingsbury, the offensive coordinator, is running a similar system that Jaden ran under Mike Denbrock at LSU. So there's a lot of carryover. He's in the shotgun. He's running some of the same plays. And on top of that, you got to give Jaden Daniels a lot of credit. Of all the rookies that's come into this league over the last 5 or 6 years, I don't think any have been more prepared than Jaden Daniels. He started 55 games at the collegiate level. 55. That's a lot of football. And we all know once you do something on the job, training, a time on task, you continue to do it over and over and over. What happens? You become way more comfortable. So I think we're seeing a case where this young man is mature. He's comfortable. He understands what his job is, which is to distribute the football to the playmakers. And I think he's playing at a pace that fits him. You can't speed him up. And I think he's only going to get better and better, guys. I've been amazed at him. I've been amazed at his growth from LSU to now, and I think we're going to continue to be amazed at his growth from now on into the future.
Of course, Booger is an LSU alum, understand that, but his opinion not different at all from anybody else. The big difference, according to Kingsbury, who came up with this offense, and Kliff Kingsbury, enjoy him while you got him, because more likely than not, he's going to wind up in Chicago next year working with Caleb Williams, who he worked with in college last year at USC. But he says this about Jaden Daniels and has continued to say it.
Like I said all along, the consistency and approach is like the most exciting thing I've seen from him, regardless of if we win. Like that first game, we didn't play as well, and he showed up at the same time and worked just as hard as he has on the games that we've had success. So that's who he is. He wants to be great. He's paying the price to be great, and we're going to have bumps in the road. He's going to keep working hard, and we'll see where it goes. But the humility, the way he handles himself, the way he works is like, as an offensive coach, that means a lot to us as a staff, the way he shows up and tries to earn it every week.
Yeah, a combination of confidence and humility has been a big key all along. They keep talking about that. And look, you hear about quarterbacks who work at it, and Kirk Cousins was certainly known as that. He even asked them to set up a little office for him at the park. It was like a closet for him. I mean, it's embarrassing, the setup that they had there. They've done a lot of changes since the new ownership came in. He was known for putting in the time, but for a guy to walk in as a rookie and start to prepare at 5 o'clock in the morning, which is what he's been doing, that's a big part of what he's been able to do. Yeah, the physical skills are there, and the experiences Booger talks about, 55 starts in college, that's key. But doing the work week after week, embracing the grind, he's done that. The other thing, and this is not as surprising as Daniels, though maybe it goes hand in hand, we've kind of gotten used to spotty offensive line play here. And, Andrew Wiley last year was considered to be a bust. They brought him in from Kansas City. And the enemy wanted him to bring him in, and he didn't look good at all. Well, this offensive line has done a great job this year, and that sort of came out of nowhere, right? Nobody was saying, "Wow, look at the offensive line that they put together here." Unlike the '80s, where quarterbacks changed, the running backs changed, but the offensive line didn't, and they were among the best in football. I don't know if anybody's saying this is the best offensive line, but it's been a solid offensive line, and especially when it comes to running the ball. We'll see how they do this week if Brian Robinson can't play, but they've done a good job of getting the short yardage, converting first downs, and also protecting Jaden Daniels, and this is Kingsbury on the key to why it has worked so well.
I would say just the way they play together, I think we know they weren't the most hyped up to start the season, I should say, but they've really taken pride in like their approach as a unit and their physical nature and finishing plays and toughness, and their communication is awesome. Like, we'll have plays we don't get to maybe run full speed, but only walk through, and that group takes pride in being able to go out there and execute at a high level still. And it's as good as I've been around in that regard, as far as picking things up and sorting out problems on the field and in game.
Yeah, so that's high praise there. One other thing on Kingsbury, and he was, of course, fired in Arizona over a year ago. and then spent some time out of the country, like he was like disconnecting, even thinking about getting out of football. He worked as a consultant last year at USC, talked to a lot of people. And while he's not back as a head coach, though I believe he'll be a head coach next year, he's made some changes in the way he coaches. And this was him yesterday explaining some of the things that he did and the way he used to do them and now how he does them. I was kind of reminded, it's not quite the same thing, but you may have heard stories about Tom Coughlin, who was a coach first in Jacksonville. He did not work out there. He comes back. He's the coach of the Giants, and he was coaching the Giants in the way that he always coached. He was very, very intense. In fact, Bill Parcells used to tell a story that he just for the hell of it called the office on Christmas Day while he was head coach of the Giants, and Tom Coughlin answered. So he had that kind of intensity, expected it from his players. When he said you had to be at a meeting at 11 o'clock, you better be there by 11 or 10:45 or you were late, that kind of thing. And Michael Strahan was actually one who helped him to change. He got him really to loosen up, and he said that made a huge difference. When they won that Super Bowl and beat the undefeated Patriots, he said he'd seen some big changes in Coughlin that year, and that was maybe a difference in how the team played and how they went on to have success and win another Super Bowl with him. With Kingsbury, it's not quite that, but he apparently is evolving as a head coach, learning experience, doing some things differently than he did them in the past, as he talked about yesterday.
I just look at it, try to get better every day. So I really have focused this year on the output, not the outcome. I think I got the other way in Arizona at times, and it's like you can do what you can do. You put in the work and you show up on Sunday and try to play your best. So we'll try to get better every day, and that's been our focus. And in college, I just got to a point coaching at Texas Tech where the guys would lose interest. You kept them in the meetings too long, so I like to break those up and get them on the field. And in the meetings, they'll nod and say, yeah, coach, I got it, and they don't really got it. But if you get them out on the grass and you talk them through it and you walk through it, it tends to stick a little bit better.
Yeah, that's what they've been saying. He's been doing a lot of walkthroughs, and that makes total sense. Instead of going over a lot of material in a classroom, get them out on the field and put in a demonstration of exactly what you've talked about. So maybe that's made a difference as well. But so far, so good. And while Dan Quinn is getting credit for doing a good job and turning this team over and so forth, I would say that the big star of the coaching staff right now is Kliff Kingsbury, who got a game ball last week in Arizona. And, you see him walking around. He's got sort of that Steve McQueen swagger to him, wears the sunglasses, the whole deal, the short beard. As a matter of fact, I heard this. He is, I think, still single. And they said when he was coaching at Texas Tech, and he worked with Mahomes there. I mean, the list of quarterbacks that he's had throughout his career is remarkable. But they said that what he was very good at in recruiting players was the moms. Like the moms sort of like swooned at his looks. That's not going to make a difference in the pros. But he has certainly done a great job with Jaden Daniels so far. One other thing on the Commanders that I want to hit on. And I maybe I said this last week, that if I was doing local TV, what I would do is a takeoff on a commercial, which you may be too young to remember. These commercials ran in the 70s. Maybe they ran in the 80s. I'm not sure about the 90s, but it was Jesse White, the actor, who played the Maytag repairman. And the thrust of the commercial was that Maytag washers and dryers were so reliable that the repairman was lonely and bored. He never got a call to fix a machine. Must have been a very effective ad. I don't know why they stopped doing that, or maybe things just changed and whatever. But that was the selling point of the Maytag. Like, you buy a Maytag, you're never going to have to worry about it breaking down. So this is a commercial that ran in the late 70s. It's Jesse White as the Maytag repairman, and it's a dream sequence where he dreams he's actually going to be needed to make a repair.
Mr. Maytag repairman.
I'm coming.
Help. Oh, lonely.
Hold on.
Help. Help.
I'd go anywhere to fix a Maytag.
Wow, what a dream. But I'm exhausted.
I'd better go down to the shop and get some rest.
Not all Maytag repairmen are this lonely, but we're trying. Maytag. We also make great dishwashers.
So if I were doing local TV, I would go to Tressway, who's usually down for these kind of things, and I would say, let's do a little feature where we do the takeoff on the Maytag repairman. We'll put you in the uniform, burgundy and gold. You're sitting behind a desk waiting for the phone to ring, and it never rings. And Tressway is the loneliest punter in the NFL, right? I mean, that's got to be it. They have punted 4 times all year. That's it's the lowest in the league. And I think the next one is like at 9. So it's almost half. It's more than half. The next highest number is more than double. Let's put it that way. More than double the amount of times that Way has punted. And he's only punted once in the last 3 weeks. That's just incredible. Now, it's the kind of position where you can't demand more playing time, right? Same thing with a field goal kicker, I guess, but it's different with a field goal kicker. If they're not calling on you, well, it could be that they're scoring so many touchdowns, you don't need them to do anything but kick extra points. But with the punter at least gets on the field the way they do it now. It used to be that the quarterback, and sometimes the starting quarterback, would be the holder. Sonny Jurgensen did it for a long time. Theismann did it. Brad Johnson did it in that famous game in Tampa where they had a chance to win. And Dan Turk, the center, dribbled the snap back to him, and he was forced to, a fire drill kind of thing, throw it out of the end zone. Quarterbacks used to do it, but the way they do it now, since they work out together for such a long period of time, it's the punter who's the holder, the snapper, and the kicker. So Tressway at least gets on the field to hold for field goals and extra points. But other than that, it's just been one trip out on the field for the last 3 weeks, which is absolutely remarkable. His attitude, though, is great. And as he says, like the Maytag repairman, he's ready when the phone rings.
It's a fun way that we prepare with special teams, and that's just really a fun mindset and a cool mindset, a different mindset. It's just whenever you're called upon, you got to be ready to roll and you got to cut it loose. And what I love about Izzo is always preaching the energy. Like, bring the energy, bring the juice, the plays, the flipping the field, whatever it is, bring the juice. And whenever you get called, that's all we got to try and do is bring the juice. So it's been a fun like twist on this year. Is we don't know when we're getting called in, but let's just try and bring some juice.
Izzo is Larry Izzo, the special teams coach. And yeah, he's ready when called on. And, just like Al Davis says, the key is to just win, baby.
There's pretty wins, ugly wins, but just find a way to win. And that's what I think DQ always preaches us, to just be ready to fight. Whenever, however, just win. So that's been fun.
Yeah, so there will be a game where he will be called on to punt, but it's been really cool to see games. Oh, did you ever see Tressway? Oh, there's Tressway. Tressway made one punt last week in a game against Arizona where they scored 42 points. So that was a cool thing. We've got the Hall of Fame for the Seniors Committee. The Hall of Fame, it's a little confusing on this because the way they announce the finalists and the finalists for the Seniors Committee is different. So you may have heard that Brian Mitchell did not make the finalists for the Hall of Fame. That's on I don't know what they call it, the regular committee, but the committee that used to include Peter King, who was seemingly the most vocal and the most high-profile member of that committee. But he didn't make it as they cut that down for the Hall of Fame, which will be announced at the Super Bowl. This is the way they do it every year. You get the finalists down. I think they get it down to about 12 the week before the Super Bowl, and the day before the game, the people who are on the voting committee get together and they decide who gets in. It's usually 5 or 6 guys each year. I think so. I think it can be as many as 8. Maybe not. Maybe whatever it is. It's in that range. And so we heard that Brian Mitchell didn't make it, which is a little bit of a disappointment because we did have a kick returner make it last year, and the feeling is, well, maybe that would open the door for him, but he's not on the list. You also have the senior committee vote, and these are guys whose time expired for consideration by the regular committee to get in the Hall of Fame. And, I thought when Joe Jacoby retired after the 93 season, if he wasn't going to get in the first ballot, he was certainly going to make it in the first 5, 6, 7 years. I mean, that seemed a certainty. And I talked to teammates who thought, including Jeff Bostic, that Jake would be the first of the Hogs to get in the Hall of Fame. There were two who seemed like slam dunks, and one of them got in. Russ Grimm made it to the Hall of Fame in 2010, which would have been, let's see, he retired after the Super Bowl, so, he had to wait 18 years, with the 5 mandatory waiting years. So it was about 13-year wait before he got in. Okay, that seemed reasonable. So Jake played another couple years. You would have thought maybe by 2015 or so he would get in. And the really frustrating part of it is that he made it to the finals twice. And the way this guy, David Baker, he's not the head of the Hall of Fame anymore. This is the size of a mountain. This guy was like 6'9", 400 pounds. Just an enormous guy. And loved to see himself on television. So he set up this way of doing it, which I think was really cruel and stupid, that he would tell the players, okay, we'll wait for the vote to come in. You wait in your hotel room, and so I can get my big mug on TV, I'm going to knock on your door and tell you got in so you can give them a big hug. Well, that's great for the guys who get in. The others are sitting in the hotel room with their family, and it gets to be 6 o'clock, which is the time you're supposed to find out if you get in, and it gets to be 6:10, and you just sit there in misery and disappointment. Awful way to do that. Just cruel and unusual. Just terrible, terrible way. I don't know if they still do it that way anymore. So anyway, Jake's time ran out. You got a 25-year period after you retire. So, 93 was his last year. The time ran out. And in his last couple of years, I talked to John Clayton, the late John Clayton, who was a voter. And John said, we've heard from the seniors committee, they're going to put him in. They think he deserves to be in. Well, he made it down to the final 12 last year. It's now gone from 183 to 60. He went through that step last year, got all the way down to 12, and he had the presenter, the one who was to make his case, who I thought did everything right. Gary Myers of the New York Daily, who had been with the New York Daily News, covered pro football forever. Gary got testimony from Bill Parcells, from Lawrence Taylor, from Joe Gibbs, from Howie Long. Howie Long is in the Hall of Fame. LT is in the Hall of Fame. They both played against him. They said Jake deserves to be in. Didn't get in. So now he's going through the same process. Gary is supposed to do the presenting. It looks like the team has gotten behind Jake a little bit, which I think is important. That should help, because one of the few good things that Bruce Allen ever did was he got Chris Hamburger in the same way, in the same seniors committee. He put the team push behind him, and Hamburger made it. Jake certainly deserves to be in, and so at least he's now made it to the 60. The way they do it is they get that list of 12 down to 3, and this will be done early next year. It'll be after the Super Bowl. They will say, okay, they have to put in 1. So when it gets to 3, at least 1 has to make it. They could put in all 3. And I just can't imagine that he wouldn't be included. He played on the most famous offensive line in history, the Hogs, and the one teammate that should have gotten in got in. Russ Grimm is in. They worked that was Highway 66 and Highway 68, which John Riggins always ran behind. Right-handed quarterback, left side of the line, same thing. And Jake at one time was considered to be one of the top left tackles in the game, one of the most important positions. Made the Pro Bowl 4 times, was all pro a couple of times. I mean, come on. What it is just, the process has just been a joke. So hopefully this is the year that it happens. He still has to make the leap from 60 down to 12 and then to 3. But, the names that are in there, he's certainly as good as they are. There are a couple of other Redskins who have sort of slipped through the cracks. I think Larry Brown should get in, and he's in the 60. But the fact that his total yardage is not anywhere near, some of the great backs of all time. I mean, that's one of those ones where the eye test tells you. He was as tough as they ever came. He was an unbelievably tough player. I think he should get in. Pat Fisher, there's a question on that. I don't know whether Pat Fisher gets in or not. He played in one Super Bowl. They didn't win. Same with Larry Brown, who was really bottled up in that game. by the Dolphins. That was their strategy: stop Larry Brown, force Billy Kilmer to beat you, and he couldn't do it. Maxie Baughan has sort of a connection to the team. He was with them for a couple of years, but was hurt when he came here and really never played for Washington. His best days were in Philadelphia and Los Angeles. But there are some other names. Otis Taylor, I'm kind of surprised he's not in. He was part of that Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl team, great receiver. The numbers may not stack up, but that's got to be considered. Ken Anderson, who's a great quarterback, played in one Super Bowl, didn't win. L.C. Greenwood, part of the Steel Curtain for the Steelers, also on that seniors committee. But, to me, I think it's just been a crime, the way that Jake has been treated in all of this. And I just hope that this is the year. This is the time that he would get in 2025. There's others who have been overlooked in this too. Drew Pearson finally made it. Drew Pearson should have been in years ago, and he should not have been considered by the seniors committee. And Drew Pearson's career, I think, ended a little bit early. Yeah, it did end earlier than Jake's. It ended in the 80s, so he had to wait just the same amount of time. But, some of these decisions that the Hall of Fame makes, it just blows your mind. And also the problem now with Peter King retiring and some others, that the group of voters never saw Jacoby play. His last healthy year was 1992. He was part of the Super Bowl team in 91, stayed healthy, but by 93, his back went out on him. He played only 5 games, and then he retired. And so, we're going back a long time. But I look at this, and I just, year after year after year, makes me sick. And I hope that finally this is the time where they get over the hump with Joe Jacoby, and he goes into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Coming up, we got Ravens preview. We'll hear what Joe Burrow said about what the Bengals must do in this game. Also some comments from Marlon Humphrey, and as well as Lamar Jackson as the Ravens try to get over the hump and try to get over 500 as they've won their last 2 games after dropping the first 2. They play at Cincinnati, 1 o'clock game on Sunday. We'll get to that and a whole lot more as we continue. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.